Welcome to the Renegade Insurance Podcast, a podcast dedicated to agency owners, insurance agents to help you grow your business and be more successful. Every episode, we will bring you a different interview with more information about carriers, contacts, and products to help you every day in your insurance business, to help you with clients and to grow your company successfully. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Renegade Insurance Podcast. Today's episode, I get the pleasure of interviewing Charlie Sido. He is the co-founder of Annex Risk Insurance. Welcome, Charlie, to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I would love for you to first start off with your history, kind of, where your career started and how you got to what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career at Aon. When I started my career there, I didn't really know much about what Aon did, I'll admit. The insurance brokerage business is a little opaque to a college student. But it was really clear that I was going to learn a lot from the people that I was going to have the chance to work with. So I worked there for about nearly 4 years and had a lot of different hats that I wore there. And also got to see a lot of different parts of the business. So worked a bit sort of in like the corporate strategy side, worked a lot with sort of our reinsurance clients and folks like that. But so it was a cool opportunity to learn a lot of different, pieces of the industry, call it like 2 or 3 inches deep. A lot of people in the insurance industry, like they know a great deal about like, product liability or like D&O insurance, something like that. And so my experience there kind of showed me a lot of different things. One area though that I got some insight into was the natural catastrophe sort of part of the industry. So, Aon at the time was the largest and still is the largest reinsurance brokers in the world. And so obviously a lot of that meant, transacting a lot of natural catastrophe risk. So I saw a lot of the convergence of like these interesting models that people were using to price the risk. Saw some of that risk was being, securitized and just how big of a problem it was. Think about, how many folks in the US are impacted by floods or hurricanes now, unfortunately, here in California, wildfires. So always sort of came away from insurance, or came away from the experience now and interested in sort of the nat cat piece. Spent some time kind of in the technology world and then kind of boomerang back into insurance as sort of a lot of the folks in the technology world, like here in San Francisco, started becoming very interested in insurance. So spent some time, kind of helping some folks, think about potential investments in the insurance space and got to know a lot of the folks that were starting a lot of these, kind of insurtech companies and saw that a lot of them had a lot of interesting perspectives and a lot of different ways of looking at this problem. And like, I kind of went back to the natural catastrophe stuff that I was interested in as somebody who had just moved to California. It surprised me that no one really bought earthquake insurance, which is kind of weird, right? Like I'm from the Midwest and I was like, like 90% of people in the state just don't buy this stuff. And then saw that was sort of a similar problem with flood insurance that like, there's a very low take-up rate outside places where folks are being told, hey, your lender is requiring you to buy this insurance, and sort of observed that a lot of how, the market worked, outside of the admitted market when it came to a lot of this residential risk was really high friction for the agents. So it was like, well, why aren't folks interested in selling, a flood insurance policy to a consumer? Well, if it takes a whole bunch of time and effort and it's kind of confusing and like, there really was kind of one market at the time, that formed the NFIP, you had to go get an elevation certificate. I mean, like, no wonder no one really wants to buy this because no one's really selling it. And so it's like, well, maybe is the way in which these products are sold actually driving a lot of the outcomes. Ultimately, then ended up, meeting my co-founder, Zach, who at the time was a software engineer at Twitter. And we basically built effectively like an MGA, basically working with a team at Lloyd's and, selling homeowners insurance in Texas and Florida. And kind of our premise was that a lot of the sales process that a lot of the agencies that we got to know were kind of going through was this very like PDF email heavy version of an insurance transaction that felt a lot more like commercial insurance. It was a lot more like take a lot of the logic that might be used to like drive the sale of like a, whatever, like a warehouse or some, med mal policy, something like that, and apply it to residential risk, which like, then you're speaking with these agents, and a lot of these agents that work at these places that are a lot more tech enabled, they're like, well, we have to do this in 90 seconds or it just doesn't happen at all. I mean, we just don't have the time to spend, touching these policies so much. And so we built was a way for those folks to transact a lot of these cat exposed homes super, super quick. So it kind of drew on some of what we saw that made a lot of sense in the insurtech space. Like be easy to work with. I mean, there's no real reason not to be, and, make the billing part super easy. So we're 100% direct bill. We are E&S, but like make the E&S stuff as easy as possible. Like instead of having this kind of like in a very slow kind of email based transaction, put it online. or fully online. And then second, build APIs around it. So build an API that you can put into a comparative rater, deliver rates that way, and kind of be that option for that agent when the phone rings and it's a Houston area code or a Miami area code or Virginia Beach or whatever it is. So they've got an option they can sell into the consumer. And I think we're also proud of the fact that we're working with Lloyd's, like it's A-rated paper, so it's certainly robust there. But yeah, I think a lot of it sort of was like starting at Aon, like seeing there was like all these different parts of the industry. There's this really big part that sort of focuses on that cat, but like unlike I think a lot of people that kind of get pulled into that space, like I don't have a degree in meteorology or something, I'm really more just someone who's sort of observing this as like a business person and saying, well, where's the opportunity to make this work better? And like, I think, the analogy that comes to mind for me was like, it's like, imagine you open a restaurant and like a third of the people you walk through the door, you just totally get lost. That's kind of what it felt like talking to some of these more digital agencies. It's like the phone rings, it's a Houston area code. We just don't know where to place that. Now, a lot of that was also given how hard the market was in 2023. But yeah, that's kind of how we got to where we are. We're growing very quickly. We're adding to the team here in SF, which is exciting. We've built out a lot of the insurance team and continue to grow there. We're also building out our products, but yeah, it definitely feels like we're still kind of at the beginning a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, Annex hasn't been around for like decades and decades, but you guys have grown relatively quickly. Can you talk about how you decide where you're going to be expanding, like what states you want to be able to offer products?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, we started in Texas and Florida and then wanted to get a little bit of kind of spread. So, we kind of moved up to Virginia and New Jersey. So it was important for our carrier partner to kind of get a little bit of spread. That's obviously something we keep in mind. That said, we're also at a point where we're looking to expand, kind of across the East Coast. There's some other kind of big opportunities coming down the pike. One thing that's important for us is like we work with a really big variety of agents. So we work with a lot of great kind of local independent agents. We work with some agents that are, kind of inherently national because they're a bit more of a call center. And so for those folks, it's really helpful for us to be in more places. So definitely expect for us to be launching in several more states come 2026.
Very nice. And for agents that might not be familiar with Annex currently, where is your focus or where are you finding the most success when we are writing policies?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, what we wanted to build was, I mean, we're a startup and so we need to grow. And I think like I kind of, we have a conviction that, we built sort of as I haven't said this publicly, it's kind of a joke, but it's, we built like the Ren F-150 of insurance products. Like, it's like, okay, well, we're going to sell insurance to people who live in $400,000 replacement cost homes that just happen to be too close to the water. So at the outset, we didn't focus on, let's say, like high value or like, some like more like, let's say, specific part of the market. We wanted to serve like as many folks as we could. That said, we've since significantly increased our coverage AMAX. We offer now residential flood insurance to a variety of folks. So, we're going to keep adding and adding and adding. But I think we always thought of it as like, let's pick some big markets, let's pick some big segments of those markets and build something that's kind of easy to use and start there.
Yep. And then talk about the quoting platform itself, because you guys are a really, advanced tech, platform for insurance agents to be able to quote. It's a quicker process. How did you decide what that was going to look like and how to be able to do quotes and work with agents?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think what we wanted to build was something that optimizes a couple things. One, it's just to have as few questions as possible because that's just easier to get to a quote. I wanted to get it, put agents in a position where they can get to a quote super quickly because pricing for nat cat risk tends to be all over the board. And this is something that I think is a little new for some of our agents. Like, we don't price homes, and like our carrier partners don't think about pricing in terms of like a zip code or a county. It tends to be much more specific to a given home. So for some homes, we're like really, really competitive. For some, we're less competitive. And so what we don't want to do is waste people's time, right? And have people like have to like submit a bunch of stuff and go through a bunch of steps only to get to a price that's not going to work for the consumer. So we were trying to get that bits sort of like quick and simple as possible. We also buy a bunch of third-party data, like a lot of folks do, to sort of make the quoting process easier. The other piece too is that we make the payments process really easy. So we have a partner that processes our payments that's really specifically focused on insurance. So we offer like a combined kind of like premium financing, pay in full kind of checkout experience. It's all digital. It feels like buying something on Amazon. We also are 100% direct bill. We heard that was really important for agents. So we can use all for them. It's all kind of automated. It's all behind the scenes. Like, we'll only kind of reach out if, running into any issues with the lender, but really it's all kind of just handled by us. Then lastly, there's a sort of like E&S component most of the time. So some states, let's say residential flood is in the export list, or some states don't really have that sort of requirement. But when there is that requirement, we try to make it as easy as possible with agents. I think part of it too is like, given where the market's been for the past several years, a lot of agents that hadn't had to place business into the E&S market are now having to sort of like do it for the first time and figure it out. And so we kind of wanted to make that process kind of pretty straightforward. So yeah, the whole experience from quoting to binding, takes, I don't know, it takes 90 seconds, something like that. It's real quick. And yeah, we're just trying to make things easy. And then, we also have an API. So some, agents are, kind of really coming to us through their comparative rating experience, where they're seeing us as a rate, and they're going to click, and then they're going to kind of come into us that way. Looking ahead, we're going to make a lot of improvements to the agent experience in 2026, like, enabling people to make more changes to policies than they can make now, and a whole bunch of other stuff, but also try to make it a little bit easier to like cross-sell some of our products and things like that. And yeah, otherwise though, we really just try to make it as quick and simple as possible.
Gotcha. Now, you currently offer the home and the flood insurance. Do you see Annex expanding into other products as well, or is that going to stay your focus?
I think our perspective is residential risk is a huge world. And like, there's a lot of pieces to it, whether it's more states. I mean, we want to sell, we currently don't sell HO6, to give you a sense. So we think there's a lot of opportunities to expand, across residential risk. And so I think that's really our big focus now, and just making that, as doing as good a job as we can at that. I think our perspective is like, it's a really, really big market. The nice thing about it is, like, unlike something like commercial, where there's like all these different pieces to commercial and all these different segments that you can have to master, like homeowners insurance or residential flood insurance are opportunities to actually attack, segments that are still really, really big, but they're relatively more consistent. So like, kind of like techifying a lot of it, is a bit more straightforward once you've kind of stood up a lot of the like basic building blocks around billing and stuff like that. So I think that's kind of our perspective, at least for now. I mean, we've got a ton of growth out of us and a lot of opportunities. So I think too, like it's challenging as a startup. Like, you have to really stay focused, and like, it's easy to kind of run in lots of different directions. And you have a lot of opportunity, and part of that means, sort of deferring some opportunities or just passing on some opportunities. You're like, hey, we could try to sort of, lean into this area, but like the experience for the agents or the consumers would be kind of marginal. There's so much more we could do here that I think, we're really going to focus on kind of the residential piece, at least for now.
Okay, sounds good. Now, if I had a client, say, for example, that I was doing a quote for, and I felt that, Annex is going to be the best policy for them, but they hadn't yet heard of you. What,
Yeah.
Advice would you give for insurance agents on kind of how to be the cheerleader and explain why Annex is a great company?
Yeah. So I think, a lot of it is going to be that the pricing is going to be compelling, and the paper that sits behind it is A-rated, right? You're getting a policy from something that from Lloyd's, it's the same, insurance carrier that's backing, whether it's a big giant company like, Chevron or something like that, or, even, I would say this to an insurer, but selling reinsurance to the admitted market, you're getting a really, really strong partner there, which I think is a really big and important piece to this. I think, unfortunately, in NatCat, there's some sort of startups that get spun up by folks that really kind of are hoping that the wind doesn't blow, and when the wind blows, then they may not be there the next day. So you don't have to worry about that at all with us. We've also tried to make our product feel a bit more like an admitted product. So it's got a lot of the add-on coverages. We're using a replacement cost estimator that is giving sort of a fair shake. We've also seen some carriers in the market that just rate all homes as economy, and so therefore magically the premiums are pretty low because there's not really much coverage there. I think we're proud of that. Like, we don't really try to like find some ways to rejigger things to somehow like win share. What you're getting is what you're getting. It's really what it says it is. So it's something you can feel good about.
Okay, awesome. You have a unique perspective, being a co-founder, one, and not so much being on the sales agent side. I'd like for you to talk about what you're seeing in the insurance industry now, especially as the tech does advance, and then what you think might be some opportunities or challenges in our future.
Yeah, I think like where we really see a lot of things, obviously we're an E&S company at the end of the day. And like, I think our perspective is that like there was sort of felt like there was the admitted market, and there were these residual markets like TWIA, the Fair Plan, Citizens, etc. And E&S was sort of this like, it felt like a bit of a sideshow. While it was like pretty big, it was sort of like, let's say you had a very expensive home in Palm Beach, like maybe that's going to go to the E&S market. But it seems to be that E&S needs to be a bigger part of the market. And I think we want there to be sort of almost like another version of E&S that's like highly rated paper, that's easy to use, that feels much more like the admitted market, but that's able to use the pricing that you can, deliver as an E&S player into the market in a really healthy way, in the sense that like a lot of the challenge in pricing natural catastrophe risk is aggregation. So, being able to like think about like the aggregation of risk and incorporate that into your pricing in a dynamic way, like that's a really important thing that we can deliver with like carrier partners. And I think that's something that the market just sorely needs. It just needs like sort of another kind of outlet for a lot of this risk that isn't a sort of like PDF based transaction, and that's a capital partner that's going to be there when the wind blows. So I think that's something that we see as a big overall trend. I think there's obviously more and more folks moving to places where there tend to be these events. Fortunately, this isn't a problem that feels like it's shrinking. I mean, obviously, say the Florida market's been changing, for the better, for the past, call it, year or so. California is still really challenged. Texas is still challenged, but these markets are going to, probably start softening over time. It's kind of open news that the reinsurance markets are starting to soften. At the same time, this problem isn't going away. So I think we need sort of a secular trend or a secular sort of fix for this. In terms of other things too, I mean, I think like we're getting the sense that, agencies are starting to work more with tech, like we're, leaning in on the API side there, building APIs that, agencies can use to just get more information about policies, things like that, which is something we're a big believer in. If there's things that people are doing that are just kind of repetitive that a computer could do, we can just have the computer do it and let the insurance people kind of focus on the actual insurance people problems and serve customers and stuff. Something we're going to try to do too, kind of going into next year, is build a lot more kind of like consumer facing stuff. So just make it easier for consumers to work with us. Like we're not trying to, work directly with them in the sense of like, be the agent at all. It's more just like if somebody needs a document, make it easier for them to get that. And that's something that we kind of pride ourselves on. Like we're not trying to be this kind of like black box. Like if somebody calls us and it's something we're just going to give to them. We want to be easy to work with. At the end of the day, most of these people don't want to think about any of this. They just need to close in their home, and it's just sort of like having that attitude of like, hey, let's all just kind of air traffic control these closings to their happy place and get that done as quickly as possible. Obviously, there's a lot going on the AI side. I think, we're still waiting to see something that's like really actually compelling in terms of personalized insurance. We need some stuff here on the coding side with it, but yeah, lots changing. But I think for us, yeah, the big focus for us is just thinking through how we can sort of, come into the market and grow in the market as an E&S provider that feels a lot more like working with an admitted market. And the E&S part is really just there to do service to the, carrier partners and the consumers in terms of delivering like a more consistent, affordable insurance product.
Yeah, makes sense. For agents that want to get to know Annex a little bit better, do you have tools, resources? How do we learn more about the company and the products that you offer?
Yeah, we do. We have some product overviews that are sort of like this one that's kind of longer. This one that's a bit more brief. I can certainly share those with you. But yeah, that sort of cover like here's what we do on the homeowner side, here's what we do on the flood side, and then just kind of give the quick overview. So yeah, we have those, and then obviously we have trainings. We have folks that work with agents all day that are happy to like give everybody as much of a rundown and as much assistance as possible and getting to know the platform and all that kind of thing.
Very good. All right. Any last pieces of advice for us in the insurance world going forward? We like you mentioned, we have a lot of challenges. California, Texas, Florida, probably the biggest states that see those challenges. How do we remain successful in this business with our clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm the last person to ask about that. I mean, y'all are the ones that need to tell us what y'all need. I mean, we're really kind of we're really back from what the agent community is going to think is helpful in terms of an experience, in terms of like connecting the dots between what the agents and consumers need and the capital providers. I mean, I don't think we come into this, thinking that we're smarter than anybody or like, anything like that. It's more just like, how can we kind of just connect the dots a lot better around here, and then make things easier. And at the end of the day, like a lot of these consumers are ultimately going to buy these products because they're less expensive. It's like, well, how can we kind of, obviously create really good outcomes for our capacity providers, but provide something through to the insureds that makes this product more affordable. Because like at the end of the day, we like the fact that we get to sell something that, saves folks money if it's a good fit for them, or it's like the option for them that's not, TWIA, right? That's like, just not a good outcome. I mean, like, that's not where even TWIA wants them to be. So it's like, how do we avoid folks ending up in these markets residual markets, I should say. So yeah, I mean, really it's not on us to say what what the insurance industry should be doing or thinking. It's more kind of, to the agents and to the capital providers, what we can do here, leaning on some of our strengths to really kind of connect the dots better.
Yeah, sounds like you value your partnerships with insurance agents and open to listening to feedback as you guys continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's, the reason this exists is because we had a lot of conversations with folks that said like, hey, you know what? When the phone rings and it's a Houston area code, we just don't really have a plan. And it was that's just sort of was very surprising, how kind of seemingly broken things were. And so that was the genesis of the company. And then, partnering with some folks in London, who were like, hey, you know what, that's kind of crazy. We haven't really heard that before. And sort of then realizing well, if you kind of use technology to do a lot of the quoting and stuff like that, then you're able to access a lot of, risk that a lot of other folks just don't really see. And so that sort of creates some benefits. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely here more to listen than to talk.
Gotcha. Now, you've been in the insurance industry for a little bit. What do you most enjoy now when it comes to what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we really enjoy around here is just finding ways where, we can use technology to create maybe non-obvious value on the underwriting and sort of the distribution side. So as I alluded to, there's going to be some cool kind of cross-sell stuff that's going to come through next year. We share a lot with our capacity partners that I think a lot of other folks kind of aren't in a position to share just because we have a lot of data and it's just easy to get. So yeah, I think there's a lot that we do here that I think it's sort of stuff that a lot of other places, or I shouldn't say places, but sort of other portions of the financial services industry have kind of figured out some time ago, or that's starting to come into insurance. I'm kind of happy to be the folks driving that forward. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely exciting. Obviously it's always exciting to launch new states and new products and things like that. And obviously it's exciting to watch the growth really well, while also, creating really good underwriting that comes from our carrier partners. So it's always exciting kind of on the co-founder side, just to be in a place where you're growing a lot.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, I really appreciate your time today on our podcast. Definitely send over the resources so that we can share it with the team too, and for them to get to know Annex a little bit better.
All right. Well, great. Thank you, Angela.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Insurance Podcast. If you would like more information, would like to join the Renegade Insurance family, go to renegadeinsurance.com today.